Hello, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I thought I'd pop on real quickie with a few more fun, funny dreams to share and a couple of other thoughts. Um, I have a performance tonight. I'm playing at a small bar in Amherst, New York, which is a suburb of Buffalo, and I had a gig last night too that went pretty well. I sang well. I was happy. Hey, Shay, here he comes, right on cue. Come on, buddy. He does. He usually comes right up on the couch to sit with me whenever I'm here, which I really love. Come here, buddy. Come on. Come on. All right. He won't in a second. Probably. Excuse me. I'm always sniffly. I have a permanently runny nose. It's very attractive. So this is something I would like to write about at some point, maybe for the next book. But for anyone who has purchased the most recent book, my most recent book is called Life is Magic. You can find it on Amazon under my name, Rob Falgiano. And there's a chapter in there about my mom's ongoing relationship with Saint Therese. She has prayed to Saint Therese for quite a long time. And the original Carmelite monastery was founded in Buffalo. Maybe like 100 years ago. And the chapter details all of this in the book. And my mom has a statue, a little figurine of St. Therese in her bedroom, too, that she keeps there and will often touch. And St. Therese was known not as this, was as the patron saint of roses. There's an association with roses that I'm forgetting why she's associated with roses. But for people who pray to St. Therese, they will often ask to be sent a rose, and as a sign of acknowledgement of their prayer to St. Therese. So this chapter in the book gets into that, and there are some good surprises that are detailed in there. And so my mom still does this. And so this would be kind of a continuation of that chapter if you've read it, or if you've not read it, it doesn't really spoil it because, why doesn't it? Because that's a whole story to itself. So anyway, Jay's up here. Oh, too high. Can't see him. Oh, well, he's there. Hey, buddy. So my mom has been once again kind of asking St. Therese to send her a rose in response to some of her prayers, her more recent prayers. And my understanding is the rose can be really anything. It can be like a literal rose, or it can be a picture of a rose, or someone gives you, roses as a gift, or whatever. I kind of said the same thing twice. It's that kind of day. So she was doing that prayer again last month, and she didn't get one for a while, and it doesn't always happen right away for her, and I don't know how it works for other people if they try this kind of prayer. I'd be curious if anyone else does this. Please chime in the comments. Love to know. And excuse me, she didn't really get a rose, and so she was kind of wondering, and then as you probably know, and I mentioned in the last video, my brother Steve has cerebral palsy, so he has never walked. He has a mild learning disability, but mainly he is just funny as hell. He is such a sweetheart. He is one of the kindest, gentlest souls I've ever met. And my mom often takes him to his medical appointments, and well, almost always, unless my mom or my father or myself, is steps in, or if we're available, or if she's unavailable, because she's retired now, so she has more time to do that than before. So she took Steve for a medical appointment, and she was a little worried about one of his levels, like a level of something with his blood. So I won't get too specific about it, but she was concerned about it. And when they went to see the doctor after the blood test and everything, it had leveled off. So this thing that she was worried about with regard to my brother corrected itself. So we were very relieved about that. And then a day or two after that, she heard or felt, and I asked her to describe this, but she felt a voice say to her, "That was your rose," meaning the results of my brother's blood test. That was your rose. That was your gift. And pardon me, I asked her if we've gone through this drill before, whose voice was it and that kind of thing, and she said, well, it wasn't really a voice, it was really a felt thing. And that's similar to things I've had and have described in books, and that many people in the psychic community have experienced. So you probably know what I mean. I think that's actually called, what is it, clairsentience, the knowing. So that was kind of neat. And I just wanted to share that because it was, she did eventually get her rose. It just wasn't, it really wasn't literally a rose, though that has happened to her too. It was, this gift of good news about health from my brother. So that's a little positive for today. And then, excuse me. Yep. Gross. What can I do? What do I gotta do? Put a little permanent fixture underneath my nose, walk around with like a bandage underneath my nose all the time because my nose runs. What a life. So my dreams have continued in abundance. Let's see, where's the one from the other night that I wrote a bit about? This one was funny because it was me and Shay, my cat. He's a little orange guy. I'll give you a little view here. Hey, buddy, say hi. We went on a dream adventure the other night, right? Yes, we did. So, yeah, what happened was, I had this dream that Shay and I we were basically in astral form, and I knew that we were, and we traveled. We were traveling, I think, through dimensions. I often have these dreams of being on these exotic highways that are impossible highways, like they're impossibly high in the sky. Sometimes you can see the ground below, but they're way higher than a normal skyway. We have a skyway highway at the harbor of Buffalo, but this is far higher than that. And they're even like roller coasters sometimes where they loop to loop, and I might be driving in a vehicle and I'm actually driving the loop. And I remember recently in a different dream, I actually drove up the loop and I was like, I'm gonna tip over. So my only option here might be to try to drive straight through the loop and hope that I don't fall off the loop, which I don't really think would work. But I did. And I did fall off the loop in the dream. But it was the strangest feeling because it was like knowing where the ground is and feeling that sensation and then not knowing where the ground is. And not only that, but having no idea where in the sky I was. Was I falling? Was I suspended in midair? Was I gonna hit the water? Was it the end of everything? And after so many years of these dreams, and often the vehicles I'm in are like just almost like boxes. They're box shapes. They represent vehicles, but they're not very detailed. And oftentimes there's no wheels. So Diane, you'll like this. It's levitation. It's levitation transport. And now that I've had them for so many years, I'm starting to think of them more like maybe like interdimensional journeys. Maybe this represents the journey in some way to other places, mysterious dimensions, because they're a little like being on a Earth highway, and they're a lot not like being on an Earth highway. They're not realistic. So anyway, having a little coffee. That's a roundabout way of getting back to the more recent dream. So me and Shay are on this adventure, and there's not a lot of details about where we are. It's just like we're gallivanting. We're off and we're playing, and but we come to a part where I'm looking at this tubing system, this winding tube, almost like the drain of a a bathtub, like about that wide, but curled, okay, and curled off to the side and then down and winding, and it's kind of white or transparent, and it has a funnel in the top, like an orange funnel, and I realized that in order to get to our next destination, Shay and I have to go through the tube. Ow, I'm sorry. He likes to be pat a very specific way, as you just learned. But of course, we are in kind of an astral form, but yet I'm still thinking, how are we going to fit in this tube? This doesn't make sense. So what I do is I pop Shay's head off. It just comes right off, almost like a cloud. It pops right off, and I stick his head in the tube, and then I throw his body in the tube, and then I'm like, I guess I just have to jump in. And I jumped in the tube. And then next thing I knew, we were on the other side of the tube. Like, it was like that. The travel was instant, and I put his head back on, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that worked. So I told my mom about that one. She was pretty amused. I texted her about it. What did she say about that? Oh, brother, that's a doozy. Pop goes poor Shay's head. So I put a smiley face on there and explained that I was able to get his head back on easily after. And I wrote, I like the fact that I finally had a companion for my interdimensional travels. It's more fun. And that's cool. That's true, because usually I don't have anybody with me. But I would love it if other people came with me, or my pets. I mean, right now I only have Shay, but I had Gabe before him and Jean, were my previous two cats who died of old age after fantastic lives. And I may have mentioned before in a more recent dream in which I saw Gabe like running around my apartment. The cool part about it was then I saw Gabe. Oh, sorry. I have a little speaker here on the side that I was playing some music. Just switched off. So, or maybe that was Gabe saying hello. So I'm watching Shay run, and then I see Gabe, and I realize that even though Gabe is deceased, they're in the same space, meaning, what we think of as the other side is not far, not so far. And this idea of the veil thinning and more people awakening to a wider idea of what reality is, that feels correct to me. And the fact that my mom now is starting to get more of these kind of clairsentient moments, like she had another one the other day where she kind of /felt, but more felt a message from spirit about something she was wondering about. And I have noticed that, like, the sun just went down here. It's just after 6, right? And with us kind of passing through the darkest part of winter, even though it's still winter and it's not warm here, it just feels better. It just feels more buoyant, like getting through those dark dog days. And everything is cyclical, as people always say. So, and I mentioned in my last video that Pluto has entered Aquarius, and it stays there for a while, and then it goes out of Aquarius for a little bit, but then when it goes back in later in the year, it stays there for almost 19 years. And if this is the age of Aquarius, upon which we, we're on the upon which we are upon the precipice, that's a terrible sentence. If we're upon the precipice of the age of Aquarius, then I would like to think that we would start to feel it more, that we would notice it more. Because if the age of Pluto in Pisces is chaos, like it's been, that cyclically is coming to an end, where the astrological bodies are just moving out of it, and that's just how it is. And this leads me to hope that there's going to be a lot more good energy coming forward. And hopefully that carries through everything, the political, the social, the cultural, the intellectual, you name it. So, as usual, a bit of a ramble. And then I had a few extra dreams last night that I thought I would share. Pardon me. I always dream of being sort of a kind of superhero, I guess. Last night I was I was a Japanese warrior, like a ninja. I had a sword, and I had it on my back, and I could walk through doors and walls, and I remember taking an elevator from one place to another, and I passed right through the elevator door into the elevator, and it was like, and I could see the elevator was a one-person elevator. And I've dreamt about this a lot too, and I wonder if this too is a dimensional thing. I bet you that it is. I bet you it's related, because I always dream about these one-person elevators where you have to stand specifically within like the lined border of the elevator, or else you're going to, well, it's not going to turn out well. And then the elevator like shoots down through a tube. I mean, it does. Elevators do that anyway, but maybe more like a dimensional tube than I had thought of before. That could be so, because I looked down at my feet, and I was like, okay, just make sure your feet are inside the lines. Once I'd passed through the door of the elevator into it. Yeah, that recurring mini elevator dream is very persistent. Does anybody else dream about that? Sometimes I'm in ornate old hotels. Sometimes the elevators are huge, like bigger than any elevator would be in real life, and there are other people in them traveling too. I wonder if this is like an interdimensional travel system via elevator. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I was kind of a spiritual warrior, and I felt like, being specifically Asian, maybe Japanese, it seemed to me like, oh yeah, I've been Japanese before. I've been Asian before. And this may be true if indeed we have multiple incarnations, because if it's to be believed, it's one of my spirit guides, the one who supposedly helped me write the new book, Drosh, is of some form of Asian descent, per a psychic reading I had many years ago, in which the psychic saw him standing next to me and said, oh, he's here. He wanted to meet you. And she described his features. And so I could see that too. I could see myself maybe having, an Eastern philosophical system, something closer to Buddhism. Maybe not specifically Buddhism, but Eastern spiritual belief. It's possible. So in the dream, it was like, yeah, this is familiar to me, the being a Japanese warrior. And I realized that my goals were spiritual, like being a spiritual warrior. And I would think that most of the people who watch my channel and the other psychic channels are in some sense spiritual warriors. If we came here to try to better the world, lift the world through positivity and light, then we've taken on a task that is challenging, very challenging, especially at this critical juncture in this planet's history. So, I also wrote down that there was unfamiliar futuristic music on the radio, but I liked it. I don't really remember what the music sounded like. I did when I woke up, but I don't know. And I wrote to my mom about this, and she's like, your dreams crack me up. I keep looking for meaning, but the universe tells me they are experiences. How much fun is that? And I said, yes, they are experiences. That's exactly it, adventures. And there were a few more dreams. I had a dream. I had a dream that I was out west, that I was living in California, which I've been to a handful of times, and liked more than I thought I would. But I feel like a Northeasterner. I feel like a Buffalonian. And California's just so expensive. When I was in LA for a music conference many years ago, I stayed at this beautiful hotel and like in West Hollywood. And if you could afford to live in West Hollywood, you'd be living large because it's fun. But it doesn't take far. It doesn't. You don't have to drive very far down Sunset Boulevard to find the less affluent sections. And my friend Eric at the time was living over the Hollywood Hills. And I actually liked his neighborhood, but it wasn't like glamorous. I liked it. I liked the vibe, but it wasn't cheap. And I don't know. I just don't want to. I don't want to live that close to the bone. Like the Northeastern economy, or at least in Buffalo, is more reasonable. It's not an expensive life here compared to a lot of places. And so I probably have a higher standard of living in Buffalo than I would have many other places. There's no way I could own the house I own. The house I own is like 3,400 square feet, 2 apartments plus an attic. My house would be astronomically expensive in California. But anyway, in the stream, I'm trying out as an actor for like just a commercial. And it started with being in a room with a bunch of other like prospective actors. And the people who were sort of drilling us about how to prepare for this audition were not particularly joyful. It had a kind of, sort of mechanical aspect to it, like it was like it was a sausage factory, you know. And I can imagine like if you were in the commercial making industry, like if you made commercials, like you feel like you're making sausages. I mean, how exciting can it be? Because there's such a limited palette there. You can't. There's some creativity, but you have to exist within the borders of what a commercial is trying to sell. So it's funny that I would be trying out for a commercial because I don't think that would really interest me at all. So I don't know whose life I was living in this dream, but it was not really very much like mine. And so we're in this room and they're telling us what to do, and you know, it's none of it's particularly exciting. And I'm not really paying that much attention to what they're saying. I'm kind of just planning just to be me and do me. And nobody else seems to be in a really good mood. I'm in a pretty good mood in the dream. And I don't know if I was actually a little older in the dream, but I looked a lot different. And sometimes, if you've seen my videos for a while, you know that sometimes I dream that I'm in someone else's body. I'm inhabiting someone else's body temporarily. And I'm not sure if that's what was going on, or it was just like a different version of me. But in this dream, I was completely bald. I had no hair whatsoever. And yeah, I may have been a little older. And so finally, it becomes my turn to try out for the commercial. And I come up to the people, and they're kind of watching everything about me. They're watching how I walk, and they're watching my mannerisms. And I'm being kind of friendly with them, but they're not really in the mood for it. And I wrote this part down. So the guy who's like conducting the audition, it's like even walking up to them was kind of like part of the audition, but I wasn't maybe treating it that way as much as I should be. And the guy says to me, when I saw you, and he said like something like, when I saw you with your bald head and everything, I wanted you to be really good for this part, but you weren't. And I was like, okay, well, why? Would you mind telling me honestly, like why? Because maybe I can do better, or you know, maybe I can do better next time. And he said, he said it was because I was too bouncy and friendly when I sort of was just performing the task of walking up to them in this audition. And he said, and I said, well, I just wanted to make sure you didn't think I was arrogant. And he said, yeah, but the part that you're auditioning for is for a police officer, and you were totally not in character. And I was like, oh, well, that actually makes sense. So I'm sorry. And I thanked him sincerely, and I left. And yeah, it was just weird. Um, and then, like, I think I was flying home. And even when I was on the plane, it was kind of the same thing. The plane was weird because it had like a whole lobby. Like it looked like it had a food court, like at a mall in it. Don't ask me why. I don't get it. But this plane had a whole food court, and I looked across the way at one place that was selling coffee, and they had like a sign up that said coffee $5. And I was like, Jesus. And then one of the stewardesses was also selling coffee, and it was still $5. And I was like, shit. Well, I guess they got me. And I asked her for a cup of coffee, and I'm being really friendly and amiable, and she's just not having it. It was the same thing as the people at the audition. She was not interested in being having any kind of repartee of any kind. And so I just sort of kept my mood to myself, and yeah, I got my coffee and I went to my seat, and that was that. And then there was an unrelated dream that followed where my mom was driving me and my brother, I think, at least me and my mom were together in the car to Pennsylvania to visit my aunt and my cousins. But of course, this would have been back in time because all my cousins have moved away from there over the years. But when we were kids, we used to go to Pennsylvania. They lived in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, where my aunt still lives. And it was like about 4.5 hours by car. It was outside Scranton. And my mom, we were driving in the sunshine, and she pulled down the visor to block the sun. And just like funny how like the imagery is sticky. Like the impressions that it makes leave me with feelings when I wake up about place and time, even though it's just a dream. And that kind of leads me to the other point I was going to make in this video that I finally remembered I was going to try to make it, which is that I'm beginning to wonder about, how do I put this? The reality of dreams. Like, here's what I mean. If you've seen some of David Lynch's movies, like the movie Lost Highway and the movie Mulholland Drive, have what seem to be dream sequences in them, but they seem they're almost indistinguishable from real life. And if you haven't seen his movies, it's really hard to describe, but the characters in both of those movies are kind of going through a crisis. Now, I'm not going through a crisis in any of my dreams that I just described, but in the two movies I mentioned, his characters are going through crises where they become so detached from themselves and their own, the bad things they've done in their lives, that they create another fantasy version of their life. And that fantasy begins to take over for their real life. And then you're watching the movie where you realize that this entirely populated world is actually their side fantasy world. It's not the real world. The real world is the other part of the movie. But they're presented as balanced, as if they're equally real. Like the dream portion, or what people interpret it in his movies as the dream portion, because he doesn't make it crystal clear. Is just as viable, just as alive. And I know that he practices transcendental meditation, and I have long said, even though he won't articulate it because he likes to leave his movies and TV shows kind of mysterious, he won't articulate where exactly he gets his ideas from or like what he believes precisely. But I think that he taps some of this sort of stuff on this right through the veil and uses it to make art. And in many of his movies, what's interesting is that in these fantasy lives of the people, the characters in his movies, they're, like I said, they're entirely populated. They're just as real. And then some of the characters that are in the dream version of a person's life are people that are not present in their regular life. They're mysterious characters, but they too have like inner lives. They too have like a kind of reality to them that seems to exist independent of the person whose dream it is. Like it would be as if, okay, to just use an example, it would be as if, you know how I just described in the dream that I had about auditioning for the commercial, and the guy was interviewing me, and he, he said I wasn't right for the part, and he wanted me to be right for the part based on how he, thought of me visually, but I didn't live up to his standard. Well, it would be as if that person, that man that I interacted with, has his own actual reality to himself. Like, he's a character in my dream, but by dreaming him, he becomes... This is very hard to discuss or even speculate about. It's like when he comes into existence in the dream, then he has his own reality. He to him is a living, breathing, fully existing person, and he has an inner life. And maybe if the dream went on and we followed him home, he's got a family and kids and friends and stuff in his life. And like, I don't really know what I'm getting at, but if you watch some David Lynch, you might understand. So I'm beginning to wonder how deep does it go when we dream, and these, like, there are, or say you meet someone in a dream that you've never met before in real life, and you're just thinking, that person's so real. I know this person. Well, maybe they really exist. I mean, maybe they exist in this little bubble, this little pocket reality. Maybe a dream is a side pocket of reality that has its own energy and life to it. Maybe sometimes that's true. Maybe some of the people that come in dreams may be people we've known from other lifetimes. I mean, maybe not this guy who was conducting the audition for a commercial, but other people that I've met in dreams where I thought, I really know this person, but I've never met this person. Who knows? And that's what the David Lynch movies explore. So there's a lot to dreams. That was quite a ramble. It probably makes some kind of twisted circular sense. Maybe. Well, you tell me. So that's my ramble for today. The dreams were definitely interesting. I don't know why I was auditioning for the commercial. I don't know. I didn't seem to be right for it because I wasn't serious enough. So that's that. I got to get ready for my gig. How much time do I have? Oh, I got a half hour before I got to go. So hope you're well. I'll try to get this uploaded before I go, and take care. See you soon for another book reading, and comments welcome. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.